The City That Knows You. A Creatures of Desire story about how the city around us shapes us and how we shape the city. Dani had been driving San Francisco for 3 years, and she knew the city the way you know a lover you've had long enough to stop being impressed by, which is to say deeply, and with a tenderness that impresses didn't require. She knew the way the fog came in off the bay like it had somewhere to be. She knew which hills would catch the last of the evening light and hold it for just a moment longer than felt fair. She knew the streets that would give you trouble on a wet night, and the ones that opened up and ran clean no matter the weather, and she knew the particular kind of quiet that settled over the Mission at 2 in the morning when the bars had emptied and the city was catching its breath. She loved it. She wouldn't have said so out loud necessarily, but she loved it. She was 40 minutes into a Friday evening shift when the fare came through. Pick up Land's End. The westernmost edge of the city, where the land gave out and the Pacific began. Destination the Embarcadero, the far end of the opposite shore. It was the longest diagonal the city offered, across everything. No name on the app, just a pin blinking at the cliff edge like a lighthouse. Dani almost declined. She had a policy about Land's End fares after dark, nothing superstitious, just practical. The road out there was narrow, and people who stood at cliff edges at night were sometimes people who needed more than a ride. But something made her thumb the accept button. Some instinct she didn't examine. She'd regret this or she wouldn't. That was the contract the city offered every single night she drove west. The woman was standing at the very edge of the pullout where the cypress trees leaned away from the ocean wind like they were trying to leave. She wasn't dressed for the cold. She wore layers, something long and dark that moved strangely in the wind, and underneath it something paler, and underneath that Dani had the sudden and inexplicable impression of depth, of layers going further down than they should. Her hair was the color of fog, not gray fog. There's a difference if you've seen enough of it. Dani pulled up. The woman walked to the car without hurrying, without checking that it was the right one, without any of the small rituals of uncertainty that passengers usually performed. She opened the door like she knew where the handle was. She got in. She was beautiful in a way Dani couldn't immediately categorize. Not young, not old, not any single thing. Her eyes, when they met Dani's in the rearview mirror, were the color of the bay on a day when the weather couldn't make up its mind. And the way she looked at Dani. Not at the cab, not at her phone, the way most people looked at their phones the moment they got in, at Dani with an attention that had weight to it, the kind of attention that you feel on the back of your neck. Dani, she said, not a question. Dani kept her expression easy. That's me, you going to the Embarcadero? Eventually, the woman said. Dani pulled out onto the road. Long ride, I know. The woman settled back against the seat, but not entirely. She was still leaning subtly toward the front. I was hoping we might take the long way. Long way's going to cost you. The woman smiled. In the mirror, Dani caught the edge of it. Money isn't really how I pay. Dani filed this information in the drawer she reserved for eccentric rich people, which was a full drawer after 3 years of San Francisco, and drove. She took them south through the outer Sunset first, where the streets ran grid straight toward the ocean and the houses were painted the colors of salt water taffy. The woman in the back was quiet, but not the uncomfortable kind of quiet. She was looking out the window with an expression Dani couldn't name, something between fondness and hunger. You've been driving here a while, the woman said, not a question either. 3 years. I know, I've watched you. Dani glanced in the mirror. That's so. You take McAllister when everyone else takes Fell, you know the light sequence. She did know the light sequence on McAllister. She'd never told anyone that. She'd barely thought about it consciously. It was just a thing she'd worked out, a thing the city had taught her. You've been paying attention, Dani said. I pay attention to everyone. The woman's voice was thoughtful, a little careful. But some people I notice more than others. They crossed into the inner Sunset, then climbed the slow rise toward Twin Peaks. Dani took them through the Castro without being asked, which she did sometimes on night fares because the Castro at night was a particular kind of beautiful, all the old neon signs and the rainbow crosswalk catching the wet light, and she liked to share it. The woman in the back went quiet when they entered the neighborhood. Not withdrawn, the opposite. She seemed to expand slightly, the way someone does when they step into a room they love. There was a bar here, she said softly, that burned down in 1974. Women only. You could hear the music from 2 blocks away on a Saturday night. Dani didn't say anything. Before that, a dress shop. The owner used to lock the door at noon on Fridays and not open it again until Monday morning, and whatever happened inside those walls, she paused, and there was a warmth in her voice that felt like sunlight on old stone, was between her and her God and the city. You're not from here, Dani said slowly, are you? I am from here, the woman said. I am of here. That's different from being from. Dani drove. The streets unreeled beneath them, wet and gold. They came down through No Valley, and the woman asked after a bakery on 24th Street, a specific bakery by the name of the woman who used to own it. A woman who had died before Dani was born. Dani didn't tell her that. She didn't need to. The woman in the back already knew. Who are you? Dani said. It came out quieter than she intended. The woman was quiet for a moment. You already know, she said. You've known since we turned onto fell and every light went green. Dani looked at the street ahead of her. She thought about the lights. She thought about the fog which was moving with them, which she had noticed and not acknowledged. She thought about the radio, which had been playing low, something she had never heard, something that sounded like the city translated into music. The hills and the water and the long, complicated history of everyone who had ever loved this place or been broken by it. She pulled over, she put the car in park and sat for a moment with her hands still on the wheel. "Okay," she said. The woman leaned forward between the seats, close enough that Dani could smell her brine and eucalyptus and something older underneath, something that didn't have a name but that lived in the back of the throat the way the city lived in it always. "I am drawn to women," the woman said. "I have always been drawn to women. The energy of them, the specific, particular frequency of female desire, of female attention, of women moving through the world with everything they carry." She paused. "Most of the time it is like warmth, diffuse, general. I feel it the way you feel the sun." Dani waited. "But occasionally," the woman said, "someone is more." The word landed in the car and sat there. "More," Dani repeated. "You have been driving my streets for 3 years." The woman's voice was low and careful, like she was saying something she had been working up to for a long time. "I noticed you in the first week. I couldn't tell you exactly what it is. Some people simply, they light up the streets they move through. The city feels it. I feel it." She stopped. "You are off the charts, Dani. I want you to know that. In 300 years of watching women in this city, you are genuinely anomalous." Dani looked at herself in the rearview mirror for a moment. Then she looked at the woman. "And you put in a fair request," she said. "I wanted to ride along." There was something almost shy in it, something that surprised Dani from a creature of 300 years. "Just ride along." The woman's mouth curved. "I was hoping for more than that." Dani held her gaze in the mirror for a long moment. The city was very quiet around them, the fog pressed at the windows, gentle, patient. "Well," Dani said, "you know where I keep the meter." They moved to the back seat. Dani had been here before, more or less. Different women, different circumstances, the same basic transaction, though transaction was the wrong word for what this felt like. Transactions were clean and finite. This felt like something else, something that had been building for 3 years without her knowing it. The woman touched her face first, just her jaw with the backs of 2 fingers, and the touch felt like standing at a high point of the city on a clear day, vast and specific at once, the whole of it present in a single sensation. Dani felt it all the way down. "You're going to be good at this," Dani said. She was aiming for dry and didn't quite get there. "I know you," the woman said. "I have been paying attention." She said it simply, without arrogance, as a statement of fact. "That's not nothing." It wasn't nothing. Dani understood that as the woman drew her down against the seat, understood it in a way that was beyond the physical. Though the physical began then too, the woman's hands cert and unhurried, finding the buttons of her jeans with a familiarity that should have been impossible and wasn't. It wasn't nothing to be known. It wasn't nothing to be the subject of 3 years of that specific, vast, attentive regard. And then the woman moved down and nothing was metaphorical anymore. She was extraordinary. There was no other word. No learning curve, no adjustment, no tentative beginning. She came to this the way she came to everything, with 300 years of knowing and the particular knowledge of Dani specifically, of this specific woman and what she needed. She was generous in the way that large things are generous, abundantly, without effort, the way the city is generous with its light on a clear October morning when you crest a hill and the bay opens out before you and your chest aches with how much of it there is. Dani felt herself unravel almost immediately and fought it, not because she wanted to hold back, but because she wanted it to last. She pressed her hand into the seat above her head and looked up through the window at the San Francisco sky, at the orange-lit underside of the fog, at the city looking back at her, and she thought, oh, because that was the thing she hadn't expected. Not the skill of it, extraordinary as it was, the intimacy. The sense of being known so completely that there was no performance required, no guidance needed, no gap between what she needed and what she received. The woman knew, she knew before Dani did. She moved with a certainty that felt less like confidence and more like recognition. The way you move through a place you have loved for a very long time, Dani was being cherished. She understood it in the body first, in the place where the physical and the emotional aren't yet separate, and then she understood it fully, and something opened in her chest at the same moment as something else released entirely. And she came hard and long and silently, her head tipped back, her eyes on the sky, the city's lights burning golden through the glass. The silence afterward was enormous and very gentle. The woman was composed when Dani looked at her again, unhurried, as though time were something she had a great deal of. Your energy, she said, is even more extraordinary up close. Dani laughed. She hadn't expected to laugh, but there it was. Good to know. I've been waiting a long time to tell you that. You could have just flagged me down. I wanted the whole ride. The woman looked out the window at the street beyond, and her expression was the same expression she'd worn looking at the Castro, fond, deep, proprietorial in the way that love becomes proprietorial when it goes on long enough. I wanted to see you drive. Dani sat up, straightened herself out. The city looked the way it looked at the end of a long shift, enormous and intimate at once, lit from underneath, holding all its contradictions with its usual careless grace. Embarcadero, she said. You still want the Embarcadero? Please. She drove. The woman was quiet in the back. The lights on the bay bridged through their reflections across the dark water, ribbons of gold moving. When they reached the Embarcadero, she pulled over at the water's edge, and the woman got out without ceremony, the way she'd gotten in, as though she'd always known where the door was, as though nothing had happened that required marking. She paused at the window. You'll get another fare immediately, she said. You always do. I know. The woman looked at her for a moment, that look, the one with weight, and then she smiled and turned and walked toward the water, and Dani watched her go until she was part of the dark and the fog and the particular shimmer the bay had at night, and then she was gone. The app pinged. New fare 2 minutes away. Dani looked in the rearview mirror just for a moment. The back seat was empty. The city was where it had always been, all around her, enormous and lit and thoroughly itself. She smiled. She put the car in gear. The city, she thought, was really something. The end. Thank you for listening to another Creatures of Desire story. If you enjoyed it, please like